Hey everybody, this is Perch. A few different mails to go through today, so we'll talk about kind of the. I'm gonna. This is a classic sales trick, right? You tell people what they're going to tell them, and then you tell them, and then you told them that you told them. So here's the premise that we're coming to in this video. Marvel has announced a Monica Rambeau series. Monica Rambeau was Captain Marvel during the '80s, during one of the periods that I thought the Avengers was the strongest. Some pretty amazing storytelling. I thought the evolution of Monica as a hero was incredibly well done. She kind of appeared, they built her slow, they gave her really tragic weaknesses to get over. She had a number of different she did not come out of the gate super powerful and confident. She came out of the gate, unconfident, if you will, and had a lot of lack of her abilities as a leader, lack of her abilities to control her powers. She learned, she struggled. We saw her succeed and we saw her fail, and it was very well done. And Marvel has announced that she's getting a series. So this is, in theory, good news. It's not good news. That's what I'm going to tell you. So before we get there, a handful of small mails to go over. So first, this one's kind of nice for those of you having to go out and buy gifts. It says, "Hey, Perch, have to thank you. I'm invited to a birthday party for my friend's 7-year-old daughter. Waited till the last minute for a gift, grab an oversized hoodie. That's always a good go-to. She can grow into. Not having kids myself, I have no idea how sizes work, so I err on the side of caution. Get something that's too big rather than too small. That is the value of the hoodie. And I grabbed a copy of Dogman #1. My friend sent me a picture of her reading it the next day and later told me she finished it in about 2 days and got another Dogman book from the library. Absolutely. Dogman, you got kids, you're in this situation, Dogman's your go-to. You're not going to have any weird situations with buying something where random inappropriate stuff may pop up. Kids are going to love it. It's simple, and the book also is relatively sturdy. I mean, it's got that hardcover, and it's a good go-to gift. It gets kids into reading. It gets kids into comics. That's a good thing. But now to kind of the main purpose again. So to back up a second, this came from a viewer mail, but it's also a news story. It said, looks like Marvel is going to give Monica the Cap Carol Danvers treatment and push her to the moon because Marvel believes that the only way to make a female character interesting is by making her more powerful than anyone else. Not to downplay Monica's power, but she's not meant to be on the same level as someone like the Silver Surfer. Sort of. Yes and no. Yeah, you're right on the surface, but Monica is super overclocked and powered, and that was why her buildup of having a lack of confidence and needing to kind of, figure out her place was so valuable. But anyway, let's finish the mail and then we can get more to that. It's also particularly strange that if you were to make a top 10 most powerful heroes and top 10 most powerful, okay, you repeat himself, top 10 most powerful heroes, you're not really going to see a lot of crossover. Sorry, let me rephrase. I read it wrong. It's my fault. It said if you were to make a top 10 most powerful heroes and top 10 most popular heroes, you're not really going to see a lot of crossover. Spider-Man didn't suddenly become popular when he became Captain Universe. That's a great point, and that's kind of the purpose of what we're doing here. So, yes, we're getting a Monica Rambeau series, and this is written by Eve Ewing, who wrote a decent Ironheart series, and then I think a pretty forgettable Champion series. Eve Ewing didn't have a lot of experience, or zero experience, I should say, in comics before coming to Marvel. That gained her a lot of criticism from people saying Marvel is basically handing these jobs out to people who didn't deserve it. Marvel had done this with a number of different writers, and Eve Ewing, I think, was probably the best of them. Maybe Rainbow Rowell kind of came in. I mean, in terms of these experiments, I think those were probably the best of them. I think Eve Ewing, I read Ironheart, I read her series, I read her Champion series. It did come across as something where it really felt like there's some mentorship and some, like, not pushing her the way they did would have been helpful to Eve. That she would have had a little bit more experience under her belt, a little bit more kind of, the stories were solved, they weren't great. And I know some people disagree with that characterization, but it is true. I just think it's like wrestling. It's a classic case of you take a worker who has some you see some upside, and they immediately push them into the main event. And it's like, but you haven't developed the chemistry in the ring. You haven't developed these kinds of pieces, and you'd have a much stronger long-term player if you just would have done that. That was my takeaway on Ewing. Anyway. So the purpose is, it's a limited series, so don't get too excited. It's 5 issues. So I mean, does it matter? Is continuing my point with a lot of these limited series Marvel does. But the headline Photon, and that's what they're calling Monica Rambeau. Photon's limitless power threatens to break the Marvel universe, and it is I love the way that Marvel will take something that they themselves screwed up and try and turn it around a little bit on you. And it's award-winning author and scholar Ewing, drawn by new Marvel talent artist Michael Maria. The iconic Marvel superhero with 4 decades worth of amazing stories will at long last headline her own saga. Well, that's your fault, Marvel. You're in charge of those decisions. Don't finally she's getting her time. Yeah. Why is that exactly, Marvel? Anyway, they talk about how she had the Avengers and was in the Avengers and the Ultimates. She'll face a shattering crisis. She'll have no choice but take on single-handedly and reach new heights of her incredible abilities and then surpass them. A revelationary journey spanning time and space. Fan will behold Photon's true potential. The adventure begins when Photon is charged with making a special cosmic delivery. What should be light work, get it? Oh, Jesus Christ, Marvel. For Monica becomes increasingly complex and dangerous to a threat from beyond and family drama. No, I'm not. I'm not excited about this take because. So backing up, as I mentioned, I told you I was going to tell you. Monica Rambeau was a pretty unique and pretty cool character at the time. She kind of emerged in the Spider-Man annual and made her way to the Avengers. Captain America saw potential in her, but also saw that she needed to, gain some experience and kind of see the ropes and everything else. So what followed was a long, meaning years, of her kind of trying, failing, trying again. And they really leaned into the heroism of she can, but one of her best attributes is that she gets back up again. Not to make it a Chumbawamba song, but it's she actually, and it was kind of the inspirational part of being a hero, that despite fear, despite insecurity, despite the failure, she needs to fight on anyway because that's what heroes do. They really nailed that with her, and it made for a great character. She ultimately became the leader of the Avengers, and then during that time kind of presided over screwing up as a leader of the Avengers. The Avengers wound up falling apart. Dr. Druid was doing some crazy shit with Nebula. Anyway, a lot of stuff was going on there. But it basically, she didn't have an arc where she became the leader and then everybody stood around saying, "You're an amazing leader." To the contrary, they intentionally paired the story up with, people like Namor and Hercules that would like crap on her on a regular basis and basically put more adversity. Even though she gained the spot of being a leader, it still wasn't enough. They were still going, well, you don't deserve this. Why are you doing this? I should be the leader. I run Atlantis. I don't know why you're doing it. Like and Thor was in there doing similar things. I mean, they basically, even after they achieved the quote unquote goal of showing she is super powerful with her powers, and she got to the height of being a leader, she fought back her insecurity. The fight continued, meaning it still wasn't enough. She had to continuously prove herself. And this was a good thing. I saw a blog from somebody talking about racist Marvel in the 80s and the fact that this was one of the examples they gave. It's like, unlike other characters, she had to constantly prove herself. Of course, the black woman has to constantly meet new bars. But the reality is, it had nothing to do with being a woman or being black. It had to do with the idea of leadership is hard. And they wanted to put adversity. And guess what? She triumphed through that adversity every time. And you cheered her on for doing so. It made for a very likable, very enjoyable character. That was the Monica Rambeau that kind of endeared herself to a lot of people who loved the character in the 80s. I would say that something that super effed up the character is Warren Ellis. So I liked Next Wave. I liked the kind of quirky humor. I liked the goofiness of it. But it is true, I think it's a true statement to say he screwed up Monica Rambeau something fierce. Because he took Monica and rather than kind of promote the succeeding over adversity, they instead made it a joke. Ellis had scenes of the the Avengers basically telling, like Captain America telling Monica to go make him a sandwich while he went to fight crime, and that and they made her kind of a constantly bragging about when I used to lead the Avengers, and then they do a little flashback where it showed that she was a joke, and so he simultaneously made her kind of braggy and unlikable, and kind of recast the entire past as being. I mean, there's no way to read it other than the entire Avengers are both sexist and racist in how they treated her. And it made for a funny gag to see that, oh, look, Captain America's being a dick. But in terms of a continuity, way to build a character, I think it caused huge damage. And for a long time, Next Wave was kind of kept as this isn't real. It's some kind of alternate, reality. It's not in continuity. And then Al Ewing and others who I think grew up liking Ellis and were certainly all part of his forums and his parties and enjoyed everything that went on there and found him a super genius before suddenly they had to denounce him as being a horrible monster. They all we're going to use this. And so they started inserting that personality into the comics. Al Ewing did it with Mighty Avengers, where he basically took, and basically removed the amazing decades of good characterization of the character in favor of this Next Wave gag. And ever since then, they've had this, instead of writing a character who, struggled through adversity, triumphed over it, and was heroic in the process, instead they've got an overclocked, overpowered, just unlikable character who is often written just to be annoying. That's how the character has been written for quite some time now. Not quite some, years, a couple of years. And this idea that we're going to soar her to even new power. I mean, we'll wait to see what Ewing does with it. And believe it or not, the one little bit in this news that actually I like, and you're going to be surprised by this, was she's going to deal with family drama. Now you may say, what? That is typically not interesting in comics. Yeah, you're right. And my confidence in Ewing carrying that off, in this case, Eve Ewing carrying it off, is low because Marvel doesn't these days. But the character, meaning Monica, is strongest when you've tethered her back to the real world, when you've tethered her back to, in this case, family drama. Okay, let's see what that is. You don't just have her be an all-powerful, succeeds over everything character. I have no doubt that's what this series is going to deliver. But humanizing the character is not a bad idea. That was another part of the Avengers run in the 80s where, her parents and how they felt about, her being a superhero and everything else and struggled to tell them what she had, all that kind of stuff created a nice element to the character. So if they're going to recreate some of that, good. That can only be helpful. But overall, I don't have a lot of confidence to the series because Monica as a character is caught up in Marvel as a whole, this basically sickness that you reference in your mail of, well, we'll just keep making them more powerful. If we make them more powerful, then they'll be more popular. And I do believe Marvel thinks this. I think they believe that, in order to make a new character, and particularly when the character is not male and not white, and not straight, I hate that comes into it. But if they're not one of those three things, then it seems like the motivation for Marvel gets even stronger to make the character super powerful because we've got to prove a point that that characters who are not men, not white, not straight are better and more powerful and can do more and just what it, oh, you think this character's got stronger than Hulk powers. Now we're seeing a little bit of the She-Hulk show. It's like the Hulk is strong, but She-Hulk's even more strong and more gymnastic and more balanced and has more agility, blah, 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 blah. And it's not necessary. This is the big fallacy. Nobody, no comic reader picks up a comic and goes, I'm going to read this one. I really love it because the character is stronger than these other characters. Nobody buys it for that reason. And this is one of those cases where they like to print those letters from Stan to kind of back up what they're doing. Well, one of Stan's big things that he would harp on is strength does not just come from raw power. It comes from character. It comes from heroic actions. It comes from a large number of things that make up strength. And this is an example of that. Monica Rambeau, long before they decided to max out her powers more, was a strong, powerful character. She is a strong, powerful character because she overcame adversity, not because she had the light powers and can fly through things and fly at light speed, all this kind of stuff. That was cool. It was a different kind of unique power set, and it was interesting. But that's not why she was an incredible character. She's an incredible character because of her character. And so to erode that in favor of now she can travel through space even faster. Look, who cares? Oh, great! You can achieve new speeds of light. Well, Mr. Fantastic has a teleportation portal that is super rare and valuable. Except his daughter then rebuilt it over the course of a couple hours in an event. So, but I mean, he's got just a teleportation thing going on in his basement. I think it was destroyed actually. But I mean, the point is, oh boy, she's got powers that can fly her faster and maybe through time as well. Doctor Doom for 50 years has had a little rug that could teleport you back into Egypt. Well, like what are you even talking about? It's not impressive. Anyway, the strength of the character is what makes it powerful. So what I told you in that classic sales formula is, I love this character, absolutely do. I love the journey. I think it's a template of how to do the hero's journey with characters, and we'd be in a better spot if more people used it. If you haven't checked out those Avengers issues in the 80s, it's great stuff. Go check it out. Don't judge the Monica Rambeau book by the current cover. Go back and look at how this character is built. It is a classic case, more so than Storm, which was also coming up as a leader at the same time. Monica Rambeau had a great hero's journey. And I don't have a lot of confidence that it's going to do this. And I do think it is absolutely the fallacy of, if you just make them more powerful, if you just make them more confident, remove any weakness, you can't have any chink in the armor, then everybody will love them. And I don't know how many times they have to go down that path before it's clearly proven that it's not true. Thanks for listening.